As eyes turn to the Silver State to determine the next president, the Nevada Supreme Court is determined to keep up the suspense. The Nevada Supreme Court has ruled that mail-in ballots without a postmark, shall be counted up to 3 days after November 5th. Some are calling this a win for democracy, while others say the ruling directly contradicts state law. But the Nevada Supreme Court says pay no mind. Nevada state law, passed overwhelmingly by Democrats, mind you, clearly states a mail ballot received must be postmarked on or before the day of the election and received no later than 5 p.m. on the 4th day after the day of the election. We must restore trust in our elections again. That's the black letter law. It's in their books. The United States Supreme Court got the message and allowed Virginia to purge non-citizens off of their voter rolls according to their laws in order to restore trust in our system and democracy. So, why are these judges determined to sow doubt? What laws are they upholding if they are clearly going against the ones that are written and in the books? Joining us now, Jim Pfaff of the Conservative Caucus, who is trying to fire up voters to the polls in the last few days of this election. Jim, thank you for joining us.
Great to be here, Janelle. Thank you for having me.
What concerns you about this story in Nevada? Do you think it will actually be as big of a problem as some of the critics say it will be, or what is your thinking on this?
It's already a problem because it violates Article 2, Section 1, Clause 2 of the Constitution. No state court has the authorization to change voting laws. And as you rightly noted in your run-up there, the law is very clear that they must be postmarked by Election Day, period. It cannot be any different. It couldn't be clearer in that law. So the Supreme Court, who I guess believes that some voters will be disenfranchised, sadly is pushing more Democrat political agenda in their ruling in violation of our U.S. Constitution. And it was great to see what happened in Virginia because that was an assertion of our laws. You know, often the 14th Amendment is used as a reason to violate, citizen ID for voting. But the reality is that it talks about citizens and the assertion of citizenship in all the requirements of the 14th Amendment, which include voting, and in fact, it's explicitly protected voting in that way. So anyway, it's a problem to begin with. It is they better be ramping up in the Trump campaign and in the RNC to make a legal challenge here because they violated the law.
Well, we only have a few days before the election. Is there realistically enough time to lodge a resistance from this ruling?
Well, I believe that they are attempting to do that, but the U.S. Supreme Court has to rule on this. So hopefully it'll get there. But even after the election, there's a cause of action here. You know, in 2020, most of the 60 cases that the Trump campaign tried to bring up questioning certain election irregularities, they were kicked out on standing, which is absurd because I think Donald Trump was the only one who had standing on these likely. And so they need to go back at that. I think it's valid to do that. See, because everyone got upset with Trump for doing that in 2020, but this is the way we deal with these problems is in the courts. That's our final place of standing. So I hope that they're going to keep pressing forward. There is a cause of action before and after the election. Makes it messy, but you know what? Freedom's messy. We've got to deal with these issues.
Well, the case that is being made on the other side in favor of this ruling is, it's to protect the votes that are cast by people who may forget to postmark their ballots. I guess this is some kind of widespread problem in Nevada. People don't date their ballot when they fill it out.
That argumentation is consistent with the absurd notions within the woke movement and so many areas, transgender movement, many areas. We are arguing things that are not real. We draw lines in elections, and there's a reason for that. Because if you don't do that, then you allow people to inject irregularities and sometimes criminal violations into these laws. See, these voter laws are not for the legislators. They're not for the secretaries of state. They're not even for courts that might have a concern on the matter. They're for the citizens. We're the ones who are supposed to be protected here, not these government institutions. They are there to help adjudicate some of these things, but ultimately it's for the voters. So the people being violated are not those who might have forgot to put their ballot in the mail. The people violated are all of us who did things the right way. That's what laws do. They draw those lines to make clear distinctions.
Going to Virginia on the other side of this conversation, it's encouraging to see that the Supreme Court upheld Virginia's efforts to clean those voter rolls. But when you look at the numbers, 1,600 voter records were cleared, I guess, and that's what was in contention. You're based out of Virginia. You're there on the ground. Are there more votes than just those 1,600 that are affected by this ruling in the state of Virginia?
Likely so. I haven't been able to look directly at the evidence, but everyone I talk to says yes, there were well more than that in this state. And the thing is, what might make this very important is that Virginia does give Donald Trump an opportunity for some extra electoral votes. If he were to win Virginia, and it is relatively close, I'm not going to predict a win, but it is within the realm of possibility. The gig is up for Kamala Harris. So you can be assured that there'll be some challenge to that if he does win Virginia in a close manner.
What are your grassroots movements or your groups doing in the final few days going into this election? What are some of the most important action items that volunteers like you guys can do?
Well, we have volunteers in 39 states. They're all, for the most part, active in their local parties. Then many of them are getting involved in local elections. So that's happening. The other thing that we're doing is in the aggregate, we've spent somewhere near $8 million that we've targeted in key electoral states to support Donald Trump through our independent expenditure committee, Stand with Trump. We're in every battleground state right now. In fact, I just added some television marketing in New Hampshire because there was a poll there that had Donald Trump up with 50.6% of the vote. And I talked with pollsters, professional ones who looked at it. That seems real. So we're doing that television, radio ads. We're doing automated calls and text messaging to people who are connected with us. 500,000 people are going to receive some direct communication in that way in key states. So that's what we're doing right now.
Well, Jim, I know that Virginia allows for same-day registration and voting, and they've obviously opened up early voting. But are there states that you guys are focusing on where this is particularly important because you might be able to grab extra people who did not think they were voting this cycle, even at this late hour?
Yeah, and that's happening in places like Pennsylvania. You remember there was a recent situation in Luzerne County, Pennsylvania, where police officers were shutting down early voters. Their law says that if you queue up by the time that early voting place closes, then you should be able to vote. They were not allowing people who had queued up to be able to do that. I was just on an X Space today for a little while in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. So that's an area where this type of situation is really critical. Wisconsin's going to be very, very critical in this regard too. And then, as you pointed out in Virginia, just so people know, people can register on Election Day, but that becomes a provisional ballot that has to be cured and properly and certified properly. So yes, I think people need to just get out in droves, early voting, and know what the laws are. They can go to our website, theconservativecaucus.org, and find out what some of those laws are. We can help direct them. But the people need to know what's going on and get active.
Jim Pfaff, thank you so much for the time. Always appreciated.
Janelle, thank you for having me on.
Coming up, our viewers peer into their crystal balls and share what the future holds. It's time now for Mark My Words. Stay right here.